I'm sorry, miss, but there must be some confusion. This section is reserved for our Platinum Prestige clients, said Adrian, the senior flight attendant, his voice smooth but condescending as he stared down at Amira. You may have taken the wrong seat. Behind him stood Valerie Keaton, clad in a silk Chanel scarf and pearls tapping her manicured nails against the casing of her diamond-studded phone. She didn't bother to hide her irritation. I always fly 2A on Skyluxe when heading to San Francisco, she said loud enough for every first-class passenger to hear. It's basically my seat. Amira looked up from her tablet, startled. She was dressed simply, gray hoodie cargo pants and a pair of tech goggles still resting around her neck. There was no makeup, no jewelry, only focus and quiet confidence. She'd done everything right. Booked early using her father's credentials, checked in with confirmation, passed every security check. She even held a Platinum Prestige status herself under her family account. But somehow her very presence, a black teenager in seat 2A, was treated like an error that needed correction. This is my assigned seat. Amira replied, her tone calm, as she held up her boarding pass and digital profile. You can scan it if you'd like. My credentials are. Adrian's smile froze, then thinned. A flicker of realization passed through his eyes, followed immediately by something else. Discomfort, annoyance, prejudice. Yes, I see that, he said curtly. But this seat is often held for our most P. His hand gestured subtly behind him. The implication hung in the air like stale perfume. You may have the credentials, but you still don't buy. What Adrian didn't know, what Valerie couldn't imagine, was that this quiet girl with tired eyes and calloused hands held something in her backpack that could upend everything Skyluxe believed about safety prestige and justice. What no one in that first-class cabin realized was that the quiet girl they were trying to remove held the fate of this airline in her backpack. This isn't just a story about discrimination. It's about when karma flies first class and chooses seat 2A. Have you ever been judged just for how you looked? Tell your story below. And if you believe competence has no color, hit that subscribe button. And type justice plus your city in the comments. Amira Lewis adjusted the worn strap on her backpack as she sank into seat 2A, aboard Skyluxe Flight 881, bound from Tokyo to San Francisco. She pulled out a small black tablet, opened a document titled Skyluxe Nav AI, Emergency Override Bug High Severity. Her fingers hovered over the file, her father's unfinished research, the one she'd promised him she would present in his place. She was on this flight not for leisure, but for duty. At 17, Amira had become the youngest delegate ever invited to present at the International Aviation Safety Forum, replacing her father after his near-fatal stroke just a week before. Suddenly, a shadow loomed over her. Adrian, the head flight attendant, had returned this time with two others flanking him. His smile was gone. His tone clipped and unmistakably cold. Miss Lewis, he said as if the name were a formality. There's been a development. I'm going to have to ask you to relocate to seat 14B in economy. From across the aisle, Valerie Keaton stood up, arms crossed, her designer tote now in her lap like a shield. This is absolutely ridiculous, she huffed. She's still here. I told you this would disrupt the boarding flow. Amira blinked. Sir, I don't understand. I have a confirmed seat 2A. I even re-verified it at the check-in counter. Adrian exchanged a glance with the junior attendant beside him. Then with calculated calm, he said, I'm sure you do, but that seat is generally reserved for returning elite clients. Ms. Keaton has Platinum Legacy status and flies this route bi-weekly. Amira held up her boarding pass. This seat was assigned to me. I didn't take anyone's spot. What Amira didn't see was that minutes earlier, Valerie had discreetly passed Adrian a vintage emerald ring, murmuring something about the right people knowing where they belong. I'm not trying to make trouble, Amira said, sensing the heat building behind her eyes. But this is my assigned seat, and I'm traveling on behalf of the International Safety Commission. Adrian gave a tight smile. Perhaps you'd feel more comfortable in a quieter section. It wasn't a suggestion. It was a repackaged eviction. Around her, passengers began whispering. Some angled their phones discreetly. A few averted their gaze. But in seat 3C, an elderly Japanese woman quietly activated the high-resolution camera built into her smart cane. She wasn't an ordinary passenger. She was Dr. Naomi Tanaka, former deputy chief engineer at Mitsubishi Aerospace, and the mentor of Amira's father. Adrian turned on his heel and disappeared toward the cockpit, whispering something to Valerie as he passed. Amira sat frozen, her palms sweaty, heart pounding, but face composed. Her father had taught her well, they will doubt you before they even hear you. So speak with more truth than they can silence. We prioritize passengers with loyalty status and long-term relationships, Adrian said smoothly, though his eyes flicked uneasily toward Valerie. As he spoke, Valerie reached into her Hermes clutch and slipped a small silver money clip into his palm, 5 folded Y-10 Ziozen bills, clean and sharp. The move was swift practiced, but not invisible. From across the aisle, Dr. Naomi Tanaka's camera cane caught everything. The slow zoom-in revealed the crisp edge of the bills. She quietly tagged the footage as timestamp 1741. Transaction. I have a keynote auction preview in Union Square this evening, Valerie announced to no one in particular, glancing at her Cartier watch. This is absurd. Maybe she got lost on her way to economy, murmured a suited man in 1D, loud enough for a few others to chuckle uncomfortably. Empowered by the murmurings and the soft bulge in his pocket, Adrian stepped closer to Amira and leaned in just above her shoulder. We can do this the easy way or the official way, he said in a low voice. I'm asking you once more, please move to 14B. Any other teenager might have panicked. The implication was clear. She didn't look like she belonged. The glances, the assumptions, the threat. But Amira Lewis was her father's daughter. She looked up, her voice firm but calm. No, this is my seat. Assigned, verified, paid for, platinum status. I'm not moving. Adrian's jaw tightened. He turned without a word and walked briskly toward the front of the cabin. Several passengers now openly watched. Some whispered. Others typed quickly on their phones. In seat 3C, Dr. Tanaka was already uploading the first batch of footage to a secure server in Tokyo. She didn't just see bias. She saw systemic tampering posing as procedure. A moment later, the cockpit door opened. Captain Harold Whitmore, a tall man in his 60s with a storm gray mustache, emerged with a grim expression. He was followed by Adrian and a younger flight officer. Behind them, Valerie straightened in her seat as if preparing for triumph. Miss Lewis, the captain, began projecting calm authority. My crew tells me there's been a misunderstanding, but I need you to relocate to another seat to accommodate a high-priority passenger. Amira glanced at the 3 uniformed figures now crowding her row. Her palms trembled slightly, but her voice didn't flinch. Captain, with respect, I'm sitting in my assigned seat. It's fully paid status verified. There's no regulation FAA or otherwise requiring me to move because another passenger wants this seat. Adrian's lips curled into a smirk. If you keep resisting, we'll have no choice but to deboard you for non-compliance. The entire cabin went silent. The hum of jet engines became thunderous in comparison. Amira blinked slowly. So you're threatening to remove me? For sitting in my seat, Valerie jumped in, voice sharp with faux outrage. I've never been treated like this on Skyluxe. I'm going to be late for an art auction worth more than that girl's entire net worth. A woman across the aisle scoffed audibly. What's wrong with you people? Captain Whitmore took a step forward. Miss Lewis, this is your final warning. Move or we'll be forced to call airport security. Amira reached into her backpack slowly and pulled out her phone. I'm documenting this, she said, tapping record without hesitation. I want to make clear, she said into the camera, that I'm being threatened with removal from this flight. For refusing to surrender a seat I was lawfully assigned. From her seat, Dr. Tanaka zoomed in again, capturing a devastating sequence. Valerie sliding a white business card with a folded $5,000 bill inside into the captain's palm. His hand clenched. Subtle, but visible. Adrian reached for Amira's phone. Recording is not permitted, he snapped. Amira pulled it back. Actually, there's no law against passengers recording in public cabins unless it interferes with flight operations, which this doesn't. I'm documenting for my safety. The room pulsed with tension. Outside, no one realized within the next 30 minutes this clip would ignite a digital firestorm. I'm documenting this for my protection, Amira repeated, her voice steady despite the white heat crawling up her spine. Adrian blinked. The calm in her tone threw him off balance. His hand hesitated midair, then dropped. Before he could say more, 2 airport security officers appeared at the front of the cabin, moving with rehearsed precision. One was middle-aged and white. The other, younger Southeast Asian eyes darting nervously between faces. As they made their way toward seat 2A, the cabin tensed. First class had become a theater of injustice, and every passenger was a reluctant audience member. Neither officer expected to see a teenager alone calm, surrounded by 3 adults in uniform. Their discomfort was visible. Miss, the older officer began carefully. We've received instructions to escort you off the plane due to a disturbance. Amira nodded once. Her composure didn't crack, though her fingers tightened around her backpack strap. May I ask what specific policy I violated? She asked, holding the officer's gaze. I'm seated in the place assigned to me. I have platinum prestige status and a fully verified boarding pass. The younger officer shifted awkwardly, not meeting her eyes. Are you saying I'm being removed because another passenger wants my seat? Amira pressed phone, still recording. From behind her, Captain Whitmore spoke up, voice heavy. You're being removed for failing to comply with a crew instruction. The phrase felt mechanical, hollow even to him. A low murmur rippled through the cabin. An elderly Indian woman in 1B shook her head. Across the aisle, a young white man lowered his laptop in disgust. With quiet dignity, Amira began to rise. She closed her tablet carefully, placed her encrypted USB drive back into the tablet case, zipped her backpack, and stood. I hope this airline has good lawyers, someone whispered behind her. Valerie smirked, finally allowing her triumph to shine. Her voice, sweet and venomous, reached far beyond row 2. Thank you, Adrian. Finally, someone understands what first class is supposed to look like. The line cut through the air like broken glass. Several passengers gasped audibly. One man rose halfway out of his seat. She didn't do anything wrong, he called out. Another voice echoed. I'm filming this too. This is outrageous. Dr. Tanaka was already uploading a time-stamped clip, Valerie's hand on Adrian's arm, the word belonging whispered loud enough to burn. This wasn't just an airline failure. It was transactional prejudice bought and executed at 30,000 feet. As Amira stepped into the aisle, security flanking her, she took a final glance at Captain Whitmore. Your software will fail in 5 months, she said, and the person who could have helped just got walked off your plane. As soon as her shoes touched the jet bridge floor, Amira pulled out her phone and opened a secure channel. Dad, I've been removed from Skyluxe 881, not for safety, just for existing in seat 2A. And across the tarmac, as the sun began to dip, a firestorm was already building, fueled not by rumors, but by footage, timestamps, and a girl who refused to stay silent. They're saying I was being disruptive. Amira typed, fingers racing across the screen as she sat alone in the terminal's security review area. But all I did was sit in my assigned seat. I have video, multiple angles. In front of her, the 2 security officers reviewed the incident log. The older man rubbed his temple. The younger one looked visibly disturbed. Miss Lewis, the older officer, said carefully, glancing up, We believe there's been a serious miscommunication here. The report suggests you were non-compliant. But what we saw doesn't match that. At all. Amira met his eyes without blinking. No, sir, it doesn't. 2 gates away, Dr. Naomi Tanaka was already boarding a different flight, camera in hand, sat phone active, and article half written. The headline blinking on her screen, platinum price tags. How Skyluxe traded justice for jewelry at 36,000 feet. At that same moment, in a boardroom 9,000 miles away, Dr. Elijah Lewis. Amira's father was wrapping up a high-level presentation at Skyluxe Air's Global Operations Hub in San Francisco. His company, EtherNav Technologies, had just completed Phase 2 of a proposed $80 million AI upgrade to Skyluxe's internal navigation software, a system meant to prevent human error in emergency rerouting. Elijah was shaking hands with CEO Charlotte Wynn, a composed woman in her 50s, when his phone buzzed. 1 ping, then 5 more. He glanced down and froze. The first message was from Amira. Then came security footage, still images, live streams, a time-stamped clip from Naomi Tanaka's verified account already climbing past 1.4 million views in under 10 minutes. The color drained from Elijah's face. He turned slowly back toward the table. Charlotte, he said, his voice low but heavy. There's something I need to show you. He connected his phone to the conference screen. The room went silent. First came the image of his daughter standing tall, surrounded by crew. Then the voiceovers. Valerie's comment. Some people just don't belong up here. The footage of Adrian pocketing money. The captain's quiet nod as he took the bribe hidden in a business card. The moment Amira whispered, "Your software will fail in 5 months. And the one who could fix it is being walked off your plane." The room exploded in reaction. "That's your daughter," someone whispered. Elijah's jaw clenched. 17. And smarter than anyone on your safety board. CEO Wynne tried to speak, but before she could, her assistant burst into the room pale as paper. "Ma'am," he said, voice shaking, "we have a developing crisis. The Atlantic just broke the story. CNN, Reuters, and Nikkei Asia have picked it up. Footage is trending worldwide under number Seat 2A. The executive VP looked up from her phone. "We're being flooded with media requests. The story includes bribery, discrimination, and crew misconduct. Sir," added the analyst beside her, "our stock is down 19% and falling. If the Tokyo Exchange closes red, we're facing potential trading freeze by morning." CEO Wynne turned back to Elijah. "Dr. Lewis?" "I don't know what to say." He rose to his full height, calm, towering, unwavering. "You don't have to say anything, Charlotte," he replied, "because I'm saying it for you. Effective immediately, I am withdrawing EtherNav's AI integration from Skyluxe's fleet. And as your largest private shareholder with 28.7% ownership, I am calling for an emergency board vote." "On what grounds?" gasped someone. Elijah didn't blink. "On corporate misconduct, systemic bias, and endangerment through willful incompetence." The room collapsed into chaos. Phones lit up. Legal counsel started whispering. A woman began crying. And standing calmly in the center of the storm was the father of the girl they tried to erase, with truth in one hand and retribution in the other. "I'm not interested in apologies," Dr. Elijah Lewis interrupted, rising slowly from his seat. His presence filled the boardroom like thunder in a glass room. "As of this moment, I am withdrawing EtherNav's $80 million infrastructure upgrade from Skyluxe Air's global fleet." Executives gasped. A legal officer dropped his stylus. "And as your largest private shareholder with 28.7% equity, I am calling an emergency board meeting." Chaos erupted. One executive fumbled for the PR hotline. Another was already dialing the legal team in Tokyo. CEO Charlotte Wynne went pale, her fingers frozen over her tablet. "Elijah, please," she whispered. "Let's not do this here. We can—" "No," he cut her off, turning to face the screen where his daughter's face had frozen mid-recording. "My 17-year-old daughter, a published researcher and your guest delegate to the ICAO summit, was humiliated, threatened, and removed from your aircraft. Not because of a mistake in her credentials, not because of a safety concern, but because she didn't look like she belonged in Seat 2A. His phone buzzed again. It was Amira calling. "Excuse me?" he said, stepping toward the glass wall. As he picked up, his voice softened. "I saw it all, Amira. You were brave, composed, and so much stronger than they deserved. I'm proud of you, sweetheart. Now let me fly this storm." Meanwhile, back at SFO's Terminal 3, Amira was surrounded by a dozen passengers who had left the gate in protest. Journalists, airport staff, and curious flyers were already filming. At her side, Dr. Tanaka showed her the live link the article had hit 3.1 million views in under 2 hours. "Your experience," Tanaka said, "has revealed a system that's been festering. And now the whole world's watching." That afternoon, Skyluxe Air called an emergency press conference. News vans jammed Market Street. Satellite trucks lined the block. Over 50 international media outlets packed the glass atrium of Skyluxe headquarters. CEO Charlotte Wynne approached the podium, flanked by sweating executives. A carefully worded crisis statement rested on the stand before her. But before she could open her mouth, a door creaked open at the rear of the hall. The clicking of heels. Camera flashes. Dr. Elijah Lewis stepped in with Amira at his side. The room erupted in shouts. "Dr. Lewis, are you filing charges?" "Amira, what do you want Skyluxe to say to you?" "Is it true you've pulled all AI contracts from the airline?" Charlotte Wynne visibly faltered. After a tense pause, she stepped aside. Elijah walked up, took the microphone in his steady hands, and looked out at the sea of lenses and notepads. My name is Dr. Elijah Lewis. He began, his voice rich with clarity. 6 hours ago, my daughter was escorted off Skyluxe Flight 881, not because she posed a risk, not because she broke protocol, but because a wealthy passenger decided her presence wasn't acceptable in first class. He turned slightly, gesturing to Amira, who stood straight and silent beside him. My daughter, whose research may save this very airline from future catastrophe, who's contributed more to aviation safety by age 17 than most executives in this room have in their careers. He paused. The silence was electric. The footage is undeniable. Your staff accepted bribes to remove her. This wasn't a mistake. This was corruption cloaked in protocol. And it has a cost. Elijah turned his gaze toward Charlotte. As of now, I am terminating all collaboration between Skyluxe and Ethernav Technologies. And as your largest individual shareholder, I am demanding the immediate dismissal of every crew member involved, including your cabin chief, your captain, and your regional flight director. Reporters exploded into a wave of questions. Elijah raised one hand. They fell silent. But that isn't enough, he said. Because firing people won't fix a broken culture. This isn't just about seats. It's about who we think belongs in the sky and who we try to push back down. This isn't about optics, Dr. Elijah Lewis declared, standing firm beneath the blaze of camera flashes. This is about institutional change. I am requiring Skyluxe Air to suspend all operations for 48 hours. During that time, every employee from baggage handlers to cockpit crew to your C-suite executives will undergo mandatory anti-bias immersion training. Charlotte Wynne inhaled sharply. Elijah, do you understand what that would cost us? He met her gaze without blinking. It will cost you more not to. Watching from her hotel room in Tokyo, Dr. Naomi Tanaka didn't just smile. She wept. For the girl who refused to yield and the father who knew that justice must never be quiet. 3 floors below, in a sterile internal review room, Adrian the purser sat slumped beside Captain Whitmore and the flight director. The silence was suffocating. The door opened. A woman from HR stepped in, flanked by 2 uniformed guards. Effective immediately, your employment with Skyluxe Air is terminated, she said, sliding a folder across the table. The evidence of discriminatory conduct and financial misconduct is conclusive. We were just following protocol. Adrian began to protest, his voice cracking. Accepting jewelry and cash to reassign seats isn't protocol. She cut him off, playing the zoomed-in 4K footage of Valerie's money clip slipping into his palm. The captain closed his eyes. 30 years of spotless flight hours. Gone in a blink. You will be escorted to collect your belongings. The HR officer finished. Your actions have cost this company over $2.1 billion in valuation and a global scandal that will take years to rebuild from. As they were let out, they passed a break room full of stunned employees, all watching the press conference unfold on live news. On the screen, Valerie Keaton, being escorted from her office at Vanguard Finance, where she had been a senior vice president. The ticker below read, Executive Suspended, Racial Bias Investigation Ongoing. The system that had enabled their actions was unraveling. Top to bottom. And it had only been 8 hours since Amira Lewis first sat in Seat 2A. 6 months later, Skyluxe made history. The 48-hour worldwide flight freeze made global headlines. Every route grounded. Every hangar filled with training, reflection, and reckoning. Skyluxe became the first airline to adopt Ethernav's Fairfly TEO AI, an advanced behavioral analytics system that flags bias in service before it escalates. Amira Lewis, now a celebrated student ambassador, won first place at the ICAO Youth Innovation Challenge for her adapted algorithm that detects and neutralizes discriminatory service behavior in real time. The system was later adopted by 8 major carriers and in time by the International Air Transport Association. Meanwhile, Elijah Lewis launched the Second Flight Initiative, a reform program offering professional rehabilitation to individuals who had lost their careers due to discriminatory practices, not to erase the damage, but to teach them how to repair it. Even Adrian and Captain Whitmore quietly enrolled. They started again training in regional lines, this time as assistants, listening more than they spoke. Do you think it actually changed anything? Amira asked her father one night as they looked out over the Golden Gate Bridge. Elijah looked at his daughter, strong, brilliant, unbroken. Change is never easy, he said. And it's rarely instant. But sometimes, it begins with a single seat no one wanted you to sit in and you choosing not to get up. If you believe no one should ever be judged by how they look or where they sit, hit subscribe. And if you believe the skies belong to everyone, type justice and where you're watching from in the comments below.